I'm really sorry I'm not able to be there personally to join you for this very important dialogue on justice, public interest, and the common good, especially since it's a dialogue from the margins and the front lines, the real dialogue that matters, because that tells us about the true state of affairs. GDP doesn't. Fancy, glossy economists and Time magazine and Newsweek give you a spin. They don't tell you what's happening in the world. You bring the true news about what's going on, both in terms of the violence against the earth and the violence against communities. We've had 20 years of corporate globalization, 20 years of so-called free trade and trade liberalization that assumed that only corporate profits matter, that assumed that corporations can write the rules of our governance, can dismantle our democracies and our rights, that assumed that if corporations do well, the rest doesn't count. You tell the stories of the high costs that are being borne by the earth and our communities. And because you are responding, because we are organizing against this corporate grab of the earth's resources, there is, of course, a new level of militarization to crush people's movement. Everywhere in the world, the response to destruction of democracy has not been safeguarding democracy, but using militarized processes to crush movements on the streets of the United States, as much as in the remote communities of the Amazon and the Andes, across Africa, across India, farmers and tribals facing bullets because they stand in defense of their land, their resources, and their rights. What we're really seeing is an economy that has become like a war, an economy that is based on thinking like war and instruments of war. I see this all the time in the field of agriculture. Pesticides came from war. Agent Orange has left a legacy of damage in Vietnam after the Vietnam War, and now Agent Orange is being brought to fields and farms as a herbicide. Every chemical in agriculture has its roots in war. And the damage is there for us to see, from the Bhopal disaster of 1984 to the damages of cancer in childbirth in Argentina, where Roundup Ready soya has totally devastated the land. And there are more people who are hungry today as a result of the soya cultivation than before. All these violent technologies are pushed in the name of food security. We feed the world. And yet people in the countries where GMOs are spreading are starving. GMOs means profits for Monsanto, that's all. I often say, when people don't understand the issue of patents and intellectual property rights and royalty collection, I say, basically Monsanto is saying to the world, with GMO, God, move over. Now we will decide. We will pretend to be creators. We will collect royalties from seed. In India, this super extraction of profits has pushed more than 300,000 farmers to suicide. Most of our small peasants are indebted. Indebted because they're now buying seeds that used to be theirs. They're buying chemicals at high cost. We have an alternative. The alternative is chemical-free, ecological, organic farming, which is not a luxury. It is the only way we can do farming, to not destroy our pollinators, our bees, our butterfly, to not destroy the soil and not push our farmers into debt and the suicides that are a result. But also the hunger that is being created. Because when food becomes a commodity, then it goes to make biofuel for cars. It goes as animal feed for factory farms. 90% of the corn and soya is going for those purposes. This is not food for people. And that is why, as corporate industrial agriculture is spreading through the so-called free trade rules of WTO and now the free trade agreements, some trying to negotiate further monopolies for the corporations and new personhood for the corporations, like the Trans-Pacific Partnership, like the Transatlantic Investment and Trade Partnership. These treaties have built into them investor-state dispute settlement, which in effect says that if governments defend the public interest and the common good, then corporations can sue the governments for the profits that they would have made if those common goods and public goods were privatized. It could be transport, it could be education, it could be health, it could be public distribution. Everything that we insured stays in the commons is being eyed by the giant corporation as a privatized property and privatized commodity. This is the challenge of our times, to reclaim our commons so that the public good can be defended. Of course, when you face militarized aggression, we have to sharpen our means of civil disobedience and non-violent non-cooperation even more. In the case of seed, I have done it through seed satyagraha, to not cooperate with seed laws that would make our own seed illegal. We've managed to have laws roll back in India, Colombia, Europe. They're now trying to shut down seed saving in the United States, calling those who save seeds agri-terrorists, when the real agri-terrorists are the giant corporations forcing GMOs on the world. The golden rice trials in Philippines, which the farmers uprooted, or the BT eggplant in Bangladesh, which was banned in India because of our movements. There are issues that are being forgotten by the governments deliberately, because increasingly either governments act on behalf of the giant corporations, or the governments that don't, you find a mysterious coup, you find a regime change. The place where we are going to see really serious issues will be at the time of the COP on the climate change in Paris. We know today 40% of all greenhouse gases come from a corporate industrial agriculture that's globalized. We have a 100% possibility to absorb the greenhouse gases, stop their emission, and even reduce the stocks in the atmosphere by going organic. If the whole world went organic, which is the only way we should be growing food, because for chemical agriculture, farmers are getting into debt, people are dying of cancer, and everyone is losing except the giant corporations. It is time to take solutions in our hands. Even if governments fail, even if governments which make commitments for the Sustainable Development Goals and then don't fully implement them, or try and hand over solutions to those who have caused the problems. For example, Monsanto's climate smart agriculture, or Monsanto stealing our climate resilient seeds and then claiming them to be their inventions and patenting them, or Monsanto buying up the biggest carbon company and also the biggest seed company, the biggest soil and climate corporations, data corporation. They're now telling us they will control us through data. We have to rise in resurrection with our knowledge. Knowledge comes from working the soil, working the land, saving the seed, growing the food. Big data in anonymous places can't be used as a mechanism of controlling our farming. If that's what they think, they have a total illusion about how peasants of the third world are going to react to the deepening imperialism of the Monsantos of the world, hijacking every solution while they cause more problems. It is time to build seed sovereignty and seed freedom. It is time to build food sovereignty and food freedom. It is time to stop the land grabs and defend our land sovereignty and land freedom. Keeping our resources in our hand requires love for the earth and a determination to act collectively for the common good. I know it's from the margins and the front line humanity will see solutions to the problems we face.